This is one of the most important discussions that we'll ever be having on the Warriors. Buckle up. Warning. We are going to be discussing reality. Reality. We have a national crisis on our hands, yet few Americans really know about it, in my opinion, or recognize what is going on. April Babcock has a war room in her house. She joins us. And this room once belonged to April's son, Austen. He struggled with addiction. One day he just did not wake up. No mother should ever have to deal with this. No one. We must all come together, understand what is going on, support April and all the families dealing with this poison. It is the poisoning of our children. It is called fentanyl. This is a very shocking and sensitive story, but one that April shares. She found purpose in this unimaginable pain and formed Lost Voices of Fentanyl, empowering bereaved families to turn pain into purpose. April, you are one of the biggest warriors I know. I say that sincerely from my heart. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for having me on.
Let's start at the beginning. Before we dig in about everything, there's so much to discuss. What do you want to tell us about you, your family, going back, going forward, whatever you want to say about yourself?
Well, I was a single mom. I have 3 kids. Austen was my middle child. Austen did struggle with addiction. He started his senior year in high school. And, I always say he didn't last long. So he graduated at 19. He was dead by 25. Before illicit fentanyl was flooding into our country, people like my son, he would have had 20, 30, 40 years of recovery, umpteen chances of recovery. In today's day and age, you don't have umpteen chances of recovery. You just die. So the recovery community, they're losing all their friends. I mean, my daughter's in recovery, and I'll never forget. One day she said to me, "Mom, how do you think I feel when half of the contacts in my phone are dead?" And I'll never forget when she said that to me, because we kind of got in an argument. It was like a year and a half after Austen died, because I was dealing with my grief. I couldn't even handle my daughter's grief. And honestly, I wasn't looking at my daughter's grief. I was dealing with my grief. And the day she said that to me, I was like, wow, she's lost a lot of people. But now it's not just people suffering with a substance use disorder. Now we're losing first-time, experimental, and occasional users. Do you know how many people occasionally use cocaine? It is the glorified party drug since forever. I mean, you can go on HBO or Netflix. I was just watching a series on Netflix, and in almost every show, they were snorting cocaine.
Yeah.
It's still a glorified party drug. And every time you hear the mass overdoses, which are really mass poisonings, almost every time there are a bunch of people went out and got an 8-ball or whatever, and they all end up dying together. This is such a common story. And I ask people, why is this a common story? Because it's surely not normal. If you really think about it, it's a couple specks of a chemical coming straight from China that's killing our people. And the China Select Committee this past March had a hearing at our nation's capital. I was there, and they pretty much told the world that China is deliberately killing us. This has been a planned attack on China, how to destabilize Americans. And they're getting away with it. And it's been going on for 11 years. Kind of think of this crisis. I kind of think of it like the AIDS crisis. No one cared about AIDS until Ryan White, the 13-year-old, got it from a blood transfusion. Same thing with fentanyl. No one cared about fentanyl because it was heroin users. They were the ones all dying in the beginning. But now look, if they would have cared, maybe now we wouldn't be losing teenagers and babies, because you can Google babies dead by illicit fentanyl and you will continue to scroll. It's every week we're losing babies. Babies don't suffer with a substance use disorder. And that's why we keep saying where this administration is very much failing, because they're stuck in the old crisis. They're harm reduction. That's what they're stuck in. Harm reduction. Harm reduction is not going to save one teenager from dying in their bedroom. The harm reduction is not going to save these babies from dying. Harm reduction didn't save my son who had an SUD. Guess what? When you're alone, you can't Narcan yourself.
Right.
Now, I'm all for Narcan, and I support some harm reduction. But that is not the end all be all to this crisis. It's multifaceted, and Lost Voices of Fentanyl were laser focused on supply. So that's China, it's the cartels, it's the southern border, it's the de minimis loophole, because hardly no one's talking about the de minimis loophole. So all shipments under $800 come into our country virtually uninspected.
Unbelievable.
They're receiving CBP receives 4 million packages a day. It's impossible for them to check all these packages. So they got to close that de minimis loophole, especially when it comes to China. They're abusing it. They're shipping fentanyl, precursor chemicals, saying it's toys or whatever they're saying it is, and it's under $800, and it comes in here and it's not inspected. This is like
it's a war. It's a war on our. It is a war. It's a war on our country, and you are correct, April. It is one that we are losing. I really don't understand being here in the middle of New York City. I will read a story and be like, 24-year-old overdose. And then I'll be like, I bet it was, before I even read it, I'll be like, it's probably fentanyl. And I'm almost always correct. You mentioned babies. We had a daycare, a so-called daycare. Do you remember that story?
Oh, yeah, I remember that story.
And so
I remember that story quite well. The night before that happened, I was at an opioid meeting at our local community college for the opioid funding, what they were going to do with the money here in Maryland. And everybody is stuck in addiction, and recovery. That's not the only answer. I stood up and I was complete opposite of everybody in that room because I focus on supply. And I was telling them about the babies dying. And the very next day at that daycare center in New York, all the babies are dead. All the babies are dead. Thank God, only one baby died, but only one baby. No, there should be 0 babies dying from this. I mean, they had a pill mill in their basement at a daycare center, and they were illegals. That's what's happening in America.
Oh, so much to go over with you, April. Okay, first of all, website. Again, I'm going to have all the information in the body of the video. So everybody will have the website, the rally information. We didn't even get to the rally yet, but we're getting there. I want to talk about, this is obviously so easy for you and for me, so criminal. This is a program, another program, like, I don't understand why it's all allowed, except a lot of people are making a lot of money off of the backs of our children and us and society, and destroying our future, especially with our kids, our future adults, our future leaders.
Our kids are our future. What is the future without them?
It's funny, April. I just thought the other day, I said to my husband, I'm like, with what's going on now with teens and young people and all that, I can't imagine in 10 years, like, what's it going to be for them in 10 years? And that's what we fight for. That's what you fight for.
That's why I'm fighting like hell. Like, I have grandchildren. My grandson's starting middle school this year. He just turned 11. So last year in Virginia, 9 fourth graders got rushed to the ER room. Why did 9 fourth graders get rushed to the ER room? Because apparently another one of the students came in and he had, I can't remember what the candies were. He had a Ziploc bag full of candy and he shared it with all his friends.
I remember this.
It wasn't the candy that had fentanyl. The Ziploc baggie had traces of fentanyl on it, and all these kids got sick. Thank God none of them died. But you know what I tell my granddaughter? Don't swap that peanut butter and jelly for a ham and cheese, because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You don't know what kids whose parents are dealing drugs or hooked on drugs. You don't know what's going on at home. Just this past January in Maryland, a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old brother and sister died, and their 12-year-old sister found them. Can you imagine being 12, walking in your house and finding your 10-year-old little brother and your 14-year-old sister dead? Well, that's what happened to this 12-year-old little girl. And mom and dad, the stories come out. Mom and dad were both, using. I still don't know how these kids got the drugs, if it was from their parents or if they went and bought it on their own, but it doesn't matter. The point is, if it wasn't illicit fentanyl, these children would not have died. Elementary school children are prescribed Adderall. All the Adderall out there is fake. So, some of especially the older generation, like people like in their 70s and 60s, they just don't understand. They're like, well, my kids didn't do drugs. You know what? These kids are growing up in a pill popping generation, and it's just the times. And it's a pill popping generation. Big pharma, that's what they've created. There's a pill for anything. Good Lord, your pinky hurts. They'll come up with a pill for that. It's absolute insanity. These young kids, this is the pill popping generation, and all these pills are fake. They're fake and deadly. 7 out of every 10 pills now confiscated by the DEA has a potential lethal dose. Wow. Almost all the young kids dying, not every time, but the majority of the time, it's from a fake pill.
And
pills are fake or real. You can't they're not laced. They're either a fake pill or a real pill. Drugs are laced, like meth, heroin, cocaine. You lace them, because I hear all the time on like the news, they say laced pills. It drives me crazy. No, they're fake pills. Fake pills made to kill who? Your kids, my grandkids. This is deliberate. The cartels want that money. China wants us dead, period. Bottom line, we have all the proof in the world. All the proof. They get tax breaks, tax incentives, tax write-offs. They get grant funding. And this is the pharmaceutical labs in China that make fentanyl and precursor chemicals. That's what they get from their government. Grant funding. They want us to die. And until our government wakes up to that, buckle up. I have my seatbelt on. I know what's coming. I talk to a new mom every single day. A new mom, meaning a mom with a dead kid.
Yes,
I should not be knowing all these people. It's complete insanity. And it is a war.
It's a war. I call it a war.
He's a casualty of war, period.
He is. And as you're sitting in the war room, tell us, we got to leave that China thing for a second, because I'm always railing against, we know all this, yet nothing is stopping it. Nothing's making a dent. Can you imagine, April, if you and me went to China and tried to pull this in their country?
They would kill us.
Exactly. So I'm never.
No one in China is dying from this. 0 deaths in China from illicit fentanyl. 0.
That's exactly right. And
not
remember,
a one.
It's always targeting in war. There's a lot of thinking of targeting the youth, always going for children. That is a weapon of war always, no matter what. So we know this is a big way. They're mass killing our children.
And they're saying this is the leading cause of death in Americans 18 to 45. And that number is going to go down, and it's rising, because elderly are dying elderly people are no different than 20 and 30-year-olds and teenagers. If they want a pill, they know how to get it. Go right on social media or on the deep dark web, and you can get anything. I mean, your phone is literally Uber Eats for drugs. You don't even have to leave your bedroom. When I was a kid, the thought of buying an illicit drug, that was a scary thought. That meant I would have to go into probably the city, in a dark alley, meet a stranger. Now, these kids just sit in their bedrooms, looking on their phones, and can order it. It's Uber Eats for drugs. And they will deliver it to you.
April, that's the part I never understand, April, because we always teach, if you can buy it on Snapchat, which a lot of kids are doing, it's going to be cut most likely with fentanyl. We have reports 85% of all of this is all with fentanyl, these fake pills.
I mean, I live in Baltimore. There's no heroin here. It's all fentanyl and xylazine.
Oh my God. That xylazine.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just rotting people, open sores, just rotting to your
skin falls off. I've seen.
It's so sad.
Well, let's
And they didn't want that. First of all, they didn't want to get hooked on fentanyl. It was just put into the drug supply. It was put into the heroin. And once you're dependent on it, it's too late. You're dependent on it. I mean, we got young teenagers walking around in America hooked on illicit fentanyl. This isn't normal.
But you know what? It goes back, April. It's such like a wheel with all these spokes. It goes back to youth mental health crisis. Like it goes back family mental health crisis. It goes back to even though it happened before COVID, everything that exploded and happened during that whole horrible period when kids were left alone and on the devices going to school.
That was
And
a nightmare.
That like the only good thing.
Failed
I
my
don't like
son. My other son didn't even graduate because it was COVID. And his brother had just died. He was already struggling before his brother died. Then his brother drops dead. And then COVID happens and he's supposed to homeschool himself?
exactly.
No.
That's what I'm saying. There's
What
no
happened? My other son never graduated. Thank you for the lockdowns.
Okay, so let me ask you. Let's talk about Austen. Do you want to talk about him at all? I was reading he was very involved in soccer.
Yeah, he was an
Seemingly
avid,
okay,
just
you know.
all around sports player. He was the pitcher in baseball. He was the main goalie in soccer. He loved to ski. He loved the four wheel. I mean, Austen was a very just laid back. I think I say this in every interview. He was so laid back, didn't like drama, just friendly. He was such a I never in a million years would have thought my kid would die this way. I mean, I know he was struggling the last couple of years, but I struggled. And I dabbled in drugs for over 20 years. I'm here to talk about it. It would be me and all my friends dead if illicit fentanyl was out back then. I say my kid was just born the wrong time. Because if it wasn't for illicit fentanyl, he would have never died that night. What happened? It honestly pisses me off.
But that's what I want, April. That's what I want the audience to understand. I want them to understand it's a poison.
There is zero. If you really think about it, there's zero safe doses of illicit drugs. All illicit drugs are a poison to your body. Overdose means there's a safe dose to take. You take too much of that safe dose and it causes death or harm. So you tell me, what's the safe dose of heroin or crack or coke or MDMA or meth? There is not a safe dose of any illicit drug. I say it's all a poison to your body. But when it comes to illicit fentanyl, it's even worse because a lot of people have no idea that's even what they're ingesting. So people are being deceived and poisoned to death, and it is a poison. Even those seeking illicit fentanyl, if they die from it, they were poisoned all the same. There's zero safe dose of illicit fentanyl or illicit drugs. And when you think of the amount, literally 2 milligrams is enough to kill someone. That's like a few grains of salt,
right? Like salt, right? Like a little.
Yeah, that's like a few grains of salt. And when you think about a sweet and low packet, if that was illicit fentanyl, one sweet and low packet has the potential to kill 500 people.
Oh my goodness.
That's a really good visual if you think about it. So I always say, how many sweet and low packets can you fit in a backpack? When the cartels are pushing all these people at one entry point, what do you think's happening a couple miles down the street? That's when they're pushing them mules with the backpacks through the border.
Wow.
And they're getting away with it. And literally, they have control of that border.
Well, I like to say, April, our U.S. government is complicit in the biggest human trafficking and drug trafficking operation in the world. Because that's
I agree with you.
And that's what we have. We have an invasion happening, drugs, people. Let me ask you how, we always say, and I even read, some of the interviews you have given, you just don't buy drugs. You go to a pharmacy if you're getting your drugs or something like that. Why are people buying things on the internet? Because there has been a lot of noise, not enough, never enough, Um, I would think that's like the worst thing. You're buying from a stranger because we know the internet is opening up the world. It's like opening your front door and saying, "Come on, world, come on in my house. I don't lock doors." I don't understand the mindset. I don't
It's,
know who would do that with a stranger. We know kids, their minds don't
I
think.
mean, if you think about it, if you weren't doing it on the internet, a lot of people would go to strangers. When I used drugs, I would go right down to Baltimore City and cop drugs with strangers. So now it's easier. You don't
But
even have to leave your house.
we didn't have the fentanyl, which is the poison in those days. We didn't have fentanyl to deal
And
with.
here's the sad reality. A lot of people seem to think everybody knows about it. That's not true.
Absolutely
That's
not.
just not true, especially our youth. Our youth, unless they have programs in their school teaching them, most of our youth, a lot of them are still like in la la land. And also, they think they're invincible.
Yes.
Even those ones that heard about it, there's still going to be those that are going to do it anyway, because the front lobe of your brain where all your rational thinking comes from isn't even fully developed until the age of 25. So when you're shaking your 13-year-old going, what the F are you thinking? Honestly, they can't think like adults think. And then think of the brain. If these people that have used drugs before their brain is fully developed, does their brain even get fully developed? Like I
No,
think
it
about that
doesn't.
after my son died. My
No.
son died right after his 25th birthday, but he was using drugs for 6 years before he died. And I've wondered, where was his brain with all of that? Now, he didn't never use meth, the one that really messes up your brain, but he was doing coke. I know he was dabbling in heroin. He was popping Xanax, doing Percocets, doing whippets. Like I don't. The best way I can describe my child, he kind of reminds me a lot of me when I was his age. I did whatever was there, what my friends were doing. To me, it was like no big deal.
Right.
Like no one was dying from it. And when my son died, we had right before my son died, it was like 2 months before he died, we started hearing about fentanyl and the heroin. But that wasn't his drug of choice. His drug of choice was coke. And either he was snorting it or he was smoking it, one or the other. And that was his drug of choice. And I know he was starting to get heroin to come down from the coke. So who knows? But all I can tell you is I did that for 20 years. I'm here to talk about it because illicit fentanyl wasn't in it.
Right. The poison. I keep saying the poison because I want
It is.
everybody to
It's
think.
the
I want
poison.
everybody to say like fentanyl poison. That's what I'm trying to kind
And
of
it's the
brainwash everybody.
leading cause of death.
Yes, we have
And
18 to 45, as you pointed out. But when I read that and I heard you just say that, I started thinking like it's got to, our studies are always behind because they're always telling us, well, when I'm like, this study's from, 2020, we need more updated. We don't have the resources, this and that. April,
they had the resources for COVID. They had all the resources for COVID. They had a ticker.
Yes.
We
Yes,
knew how many people were in the hospital alive, how many people were dead.
Well,
where's our ticker?
That's what I wanted to say. Like there is the money out there when people want to do something.
Exactly.
So I find this incredible. We have people just dying every single day. Now you said 300 families are affected. When I was reading a day, how many? I don't even know. That goes like I read 200 families, 300 families because I don't know the up to date.
Yeah,
like,
we're losing about 300 Americans every day.
Oh,
Americans. This is absurd, not normal. If you think about it, we've lost more people than this from the last 3 wars combined. And Vietnam was a 10-year war. Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan war. All 3 of them wars combined. That's disturbing. This has been going on for 11 years. They're getting away with it. And until somebody in that White House literally cracks the whip on China, sanction China, cut them off from the de minimis loophole, secure that border, label the cartels terrorists because that's what they are. They
Yeah.
are a foreign terrorist organization. How about illicit fentanyl being a weapon of mass destruction? I got a guy named Jim Raw. He started Families Against Fentanyl. He's an amazing guy. You should have him on your show. But he speaks every year at my event. He happened to be, he's a scientist. And then his son happens to die in 2015. He has dedicated his life. And when he talks about the weapon of mass destruction, like, it's going to happen. They are going to use that. Somebody's going to use it eventually to kill a bunch of people in one pop, like very easily. It can be done. What if it's put in our water supply? What if it's put in our air supply? I mean, honestly, I don't even trust our own government. Maybe they'll use it against us one day. Who the hell knows? Like, where's all the stockpiles of illicit fentanyl at? Like, it's kind of scary to think about.
Not kind of. It is
one lunatic.
completely.
And look at all these terrorists in our country right now. I mean, the ones they caught. What about the ones they haven't caught? We have no idea how many people are here to harm us. We don't have a clue.
We know there's a lot because
yeah.
I know from the work we do, I know from what you do, I know from law enforcement I speak with, Border Patrol, Homeland Security, Border 911, a great group. Like, it's almost like sitting, at least I'm here in New York, April, I'm almost every day like sitting on something's going to happen. Something like I feel it in the air, which is a terrible feeling. I'm not a person that's afraid like that. I'm afraid.
You and most Americans.
But we still have to wake. We still have to wake people up 24/7, 365, because again, they always come after the fact. It's the same thing with the sex trafficking work we do. My child would never do it. I'm in disbelief. No. And then it's too late. So we have to get in there. That leads me to all of this on your shoulders. Single mom, you're dealing with addictions in your home. How did you find the strength, like, to form Lost Voices of Fentanyl? Because it's not an easy undertaking.
No, and I'm a hated person too. Like, I didn't know so many people could hate me when all I'm trying to do.
What do you mean hate you? What do you mean hate you? What do you mean hate you?
Just there's so many people that just don't agree with what we're doing, when in all reality we are literally trying to save the people that hate me. We're trying to save their kids from death or someone they love. And that's what I say. This isn't a red or blue issue. It's a red, white, and blue issue. And everybody should be really supporting us. I don't understand it, because we focus on supply. We don't focus on addiction and recovery. And I don't have to focus on addiction and recovery. Right. God put on my heart what to do with my grief. So that's what I'm doing. Really, before I started my group, I was in all these groups. And nobody was focusing on supply. Everybody focuses on addiction and recovery. And that's great. That's wonderful. We need tons of people doing it. But I don't. I focus on supply. I don't focus on demand. Somebody's got to focus on supply.
I'm and also separate program, but the whole addiction and all that, that's also a lot of a money-making operation. The rehabs, things like that.
Yeah, obviously. And half of that is a scam. Anybody can open up a recovery house.
We know a lot of that is, again.
I mean, if you think about it, if I want to go fishing, I need a fishing license. If I want to cut hair, I need a license to cut hair. But if you want to open up a recovery house, anybody can do it.
There you go. That's what I was getting.
People are dying in these places. I know 2 moms in the state of Maryland that both lost their kids in a recovery house.
Not regulated.
Because it's criminal.
It's criminal, and it continues. And it's why I'm going to keep saying we're here talking about this, because we have to keep telling people what is going on. Let me give out the website, lvof.org, lostvoicesoffentanyl.org. Again, everything will be in the body of the video. Now, you took your pain. You say you turned it into this purpose, which is fantastic, because you talking about supply and intervening there is the only way we're going to get at this. Everything you just laid out, which again, nobody's talking about. Okay. What are we can do all the education we want in schools. That's great. And we need to do it. We should have mandatory education about
That's
all this.
another thing that we
That
wrote the
this should be
president a letter.
mandatory. I mean, look, we've got all that gender stuff going on. We could certainly spend a few minutes on poison.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
killing them. And
you
kids
know, which
are
is killing
dying.
them. So I want to find out, because when I found out you're doing this rally, that's a tremendous undertaking. I know this is your fourth year. It's this Saturday, July 13th in Washington, D.C. from 10 to 7 p.m. Everybody will meet at the Washington Monument. At 4 p.m., you're all taking off to the White House. Tell us about this rally, because I
So,
can't imagine anything, people holding, signs, their faces of their children, families affected, the siblings, grandmas, grandpas, moms, dads. Just tell us about the rally.
well, before we rally, we march. We get a police escort to the White House. We all have our signs, and we rally in front of the White House on a bullhorn for about an hour and a half. But before that, we have a banner display. We have 44 victim banners. We have 56 faces on each banner, and they have their name, their forever age. So it's not just a rally, it's a memorial event. We have our banners, and then there's another group called Can You See Me Now? We have all their banners on display. And then there's Angela Marie. She started the Never Alone Nick Rucker Foundation after she lost her son Nick. She brings 500 signs. It's kind of like a graveyard of signs that she has. So she
Mm.
brings all her signs. And then we have speakers on the mic all day. But it's really bonding for the families to all get together at our nation's capital, to all be there. And just, I can't explain it unless you have a dead child. Like, we're all in one spot together. We all understand the pain each one is going through, and we can meet, we can hug, we can love on each other, pray for each other. And meeting in person is so special. I can't
Yeah.
even explain the bonding experience it is. But we don't want just the grieving families. We want everyone on our page, because I hear a lot of moms say not my child, and then
Yeah.
a lot of them are in my group, and they're the ones who said not my child. And then when your child's got a tag on the toe and they're in the morgue, it's too late. We've got to warn our kids, especially because, like I said, the young mind, the brain, they just don't think like we think. We want the public service announcements. That should be the job of the White House. Guess who does them?
Yeah.
We do. I mean, we just paid $2,500 for a PSA.
Yeah,
Why
I've been posting that. I've been posting that. I'm going to put that in the body of this too.
why should we
Well,
pay for that? Because our government has failed and they haven't done it yet. So other nonprofits like me, we make our own PSAs and we do it ourselves. And that's really, if you think about it, it's really disturbing. We can't even grieve our children. A lot of these moms, they lose their kids. The following week, they're out the door fighting fentanyl. They are not even grieving their children, because it's that life or death. We don't want anyone else going through what we're going through. I'm sorry. When you're losing 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
yeah.
17, 18, 19-year-olds every day, all day, this isn't normal, folks. People need to wake up. It's not normal. I should not know these moms. I'm sorry, I'm up here sweating.
No.
I'm up here in a heat zone.
No, I know you are. No, we'll finish up, because I know it's, been 100 degrees today. You're down by Baltimore. I'm in New York. It really is like 100 degrees, the humidity and all that. Look, April, if not you, then who? Like, this is your mission, the way I look at it. You're doing such a fantastic warrior job. I know you speak to a lot of, you pointed it out, moms call you. You do this nonstop.
Yeah, it's a never-ending job, and I do have a full-time job. I clean houses for a living, and that's what another thing I'd like to say. There you go to our government. Good job. They leave it to the poor. I mean, I'm not rich. I'm not really poor neither. I'm just average, middle. I'm probably lower to middle class.
But we know, April, what they do.
That shouldn't be my job. It shouldn't be our job. Our government has failed us.
Well, that's a reason to point out I don't want to get political, but I kind of will, make sure everybody goes out and votes in the next
I mean,
election.
I don't want to get political neither, but it is a
Sorry,
political issue.
but it
It
is
is a
political.
political issue. And I tell people who get pissy with me, go blame it on the Republicans and the Democrats. Don't blame that on me. They
Exactly.
made it political, and it is not my fault.
No, not at all. It's both sides are not coming together to at least, but at least if we could deal with this border, that would be a dent in all of this. And like you pointed out, put sanctions again, that has to come from the government kind of
And
thing.
this de minimis loophole is a nightmare. If the border is secured up real tight, I'm sorry, and I support that, and it's one of the main things we focus on. But it's not going to stop fentanyl. These cartels, they got tunnels underground. They have drones. They're going to get it here. Label them terrorists that they are. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Blow it all up. They all really should die. I mean, that's
Well,
up to God to sort them out.
they are
They have
murderers.
no problem killing our children because over money. They kill our children for money.
But what
And
they're also
China
doing,
kills our children because they want us all to die. Really, they want you dead. They want me dead. They want America destroyed.
we're not dying on our watch because we're pounding away at this. But also, April, here in
Are we going to have a military in 10 years?
I don't know. We have to change administrations. We have to close that border. We have to get to our kids somehow. And I'm talking about when they're very young.
Yes, my grandkids know.
Not you said 11, like
elementary school.
But even like age appropriate, starting in kindergarten, first grade, appropriate information because this is all out war.
We have a flyer for daycare centers. Any parents of daycare kids need to know. There was an incident in Virginia. It was two 13-year-old girls. They were babysitting a little toddler down the street. The families grew up in the neighborhood. They all knew these teenage girls. They went out, couples night, hubby and wife go out to dinner. The two girls order fake pill. Two girls pass out. Guess what happened to the toddler? They wake up, the toddler's dead. Welcome to America. You can't even trust taking your child to be babysat by someone because you just honestly, and it is kind of scary. Look at the Airbnb in Florida. I don't know if you know, Airbnb is being sued because there was a family that rented out an Airbnb in Florida and apparently wasn't cleaned really well because there was residue of fentanyl left behind, and they went on vacation and their toddler's dead. This is the reality, and everybody should know. Like when I told my daughter, she oh my God, what do I do when we rent a hotel room? Well, I guess technically we should wipe everything down with soap and water.
But it's actually a good question because it is so potent.
Yeah, soap and water.
You could be in a doorknob. You're opening
no hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer can act like a conductor, and it can seep through your pores. That is true.
Wow.
And that's something I didn't know. I learned that.
I didn't know that either. Where'd you learn that?
Yes. You need to talk to Jim Raw about that. Yes. It's kind of like paint thinner. Certain things can act like a conductor. I don't think a lot of people are putting paint thinner and then going and touching fentanyl, but a lot of people use hand sanitizer, especially since COVID. Soap and water. If you come into contact with it, it's soap and water.
Wow. All right, April, because I know it's hot where you are. I can tell.
Sorry, I don't have AC up.
What are you sorry? Don't be sorry at all, because I'm so honored you're here. We need to hear your voice, April Babcock. We need to hear about Lost Voices of Fentanyl. We need to hear about the rally. Finish us up. Final words you want the audience to hear from you, a mom who's working on this 24/7, 365 with other families. I can't think of a worse thing. April, I can't.
Just warn your kids, even if they're 20 and 30, because, a lot of people go out to the bars and they get that beer buzz. And a lot of people make stupid choices when they got a beer buzz. Like, hey, okay, I'll do a line of Coke, or I'll take that pill that I normally wouldn't take if I was sober. And elementary school kids, yes, don't share nothing. Don't share nothing. Unfortunately, like it should be federally mandated that all schools teach about this, elementary school and up. But they're not. A lot of schools are, but a lot of the
Right.
majority are not. So, we as parents, we've got to teach them. I would recommend to any viewer that may think I'm crazy, please go to the DEA website. There's so much information that they can print out from there and download about emojis, what to look for, how to talk to your kids. Like, you know what? Be nosy. They're your children. Get in their phones. And if they have Snapchat, make them delete that app. They should
Absolutely.
not be on Snapchat.
Absolutely. The worst. I kind of lied because I just thought of something before I let you go. I'm sorry. I know you're hot, but is there any congressional action you can share that you know of right now? I don't really know of anything happening with this right now that's moving along.
I mean, they're working on getting the de minimis loophole closed, but it's just
Yeah, well, they're concerned with everything else going on right now, but not our precious children and families. So,
I honestly, like,
no,
off
we're
the
going to
top
work
of my
on it.
head, I can't think of
No,
anything. There's
I
always
don't think there is because I
there's
would.
always bills coming out about fentanyl, but everything that our government has done or everything that's going on, we don't see the numbers. When the numbers drastically
No,
decrease, I mean the dead people, then that's when they're doing something right. And they're not. They're touting right now because there's supposedly a 3% decrease. Well,
I
that's
saw that.
nothing to brag about. That's actually sad. And the only reason why there's any decrease, I'm going to tell you right now, it's 100% because of Narcan. And we're not going to Narcan our way out of this crisis. They have to do better. They have to do better for America's future.
Thank you. Thank you. Amen is what I have to say. April, I hope we speak again soon. I want to speak more often. I want people to really understand what's going on here. I want people, though, to also participate. I believe in 2024, we live in an environment in our country now. It's very different from the way we grew up, and that everybody can do something. They have to volunteer. They can donate a few dollars. They can start something in their neighborhood. They can look out for family members and the community. So I'm completely honored. I will be seeing you on Saturday. Again, all of your information will be in the body of this video, all the DEA, everything will be loaded up. I want to just tell you from, one mom to another, we are here for you
Thank you.
and we will support you and we will help you and we will advertise for you and do whatever it takes because this is completely unacceptable. But I want you to know that you're doing all of this. And you were also, People Magazine named you one of the women changing the world. You're changing the world. So you remind yourself
Trying.
of that. Not trying, you're doing. Because most people talk a good game, April, okay? And they do nothing. People complain it's so bad. They do nothing. You're doing. And
That
that
actually is true.
it is very true. People
Yeah.
promise you, right? How many people promise and then they don't come through or they don't return an email, a simple email? So you're out there, boots on the ground, going through this unimaginable pain. You still have other children, grandchild, and you're doing it and you're helping all these other people as well. So you really are a tremendous warrior. I thank you. We thank you. You've got to keep it up. We're here for you. Let
Oh,
us
I'm
speak
not going to
again
stop.
soon. No, I know you're not. I
Honestly,
can tell right away.
it,
You're just getting started, right? I can
for
kind of
for
tell.
me, if I didn't do this, I think I would just die.
This
I
is your
think the
purpose.
grief would have killed me. So
This is
I
your
have
purpose.
to do this because
This
it literally saves my life.
That is why you are a warrior. So April
So
Babcock, thank you for joining us. God bless you. I'm going to see you on Saturday. Please always remember though, take care of yourself too. Don't neglect yourself. We need a little self-care here and there. You've got the Facebook group. Again, I'm going to have everything in the body of the video. Get everybody involved in this national crisis. April Babcock, you are at the top of everything we're going to be talking about very seriously because this is not going to be on your watch and not on the Warriors' watch. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
thanks so much.